Hi, my name is Tatiana Kolavu. This is the video version of Stronger, my LinkedIn newsletter. This is the March edition, and in March, I published the newsletter called Five Credibility Boosters for Your Next Presentation. So I start with a story and I give you some tips, and then I'm going to give you the reminder for Thursday, the 30th of March, to join me in a LinkedIn Live where myself and my friend Dave Human talk a lot about tools and tips and ideas that can help boost your credibility when you present. We are calling it Present Like a Rock Star. So here's the story to get started with. I was participating in a major presentation where the speaker was pitching to uh, investors in order to get money for her company, and things were going quite well. She got started. I could tell she was a little nervous and she had prepared for many hours. I knew she wanted to make a good impression. Sadly, I noticed something that maybe others did as well. At the very top of her screen, this was a virtual presentation, by the way, I saw a link that said tips for how to calm your nerves. It was not a total credibility buster, but if maybe someone thought it was one of those, that's something that we probably should not have seen. So I say in the newsletter that the credibility of your personal brand is characteristic of a definition of an opportunity to make such a good first impression. And that's why it's important, especially if people have not seen you before. It's an opportunity for you to sell your brand, and it's an opportunity for you to showcase what you can do. So as your credibility skills, as your speaking skills get better and better, your credibility is increased. And I give 5 different tips in this newsletter. The first tip that I talk about is to study your audience. So anytime you get in front of an audience, you want to showcase that you have done your homework. This is not a canned presentation you gave to 2 or 3 other groups before, whether you are a trainer or a speaker, or like this person that I was watching, you are pitching an idea and you're asking them for something. It was a persuasive presentation for money. You want to just be sure you're signaling that you are one with them. You understand what keeps them up at night, as Nancy Duarte and her team says. You want to signal those things by saying, in the interview that we had, you shared that, or what I learned from reviewing your materials, or your annual report speaks thousands of words on this. So you're using tips and little details and saying that you know what they are about. You use terminology and insider language that makes you an insider, or at least showcase that you've done your preparation. You customize maybe your visuals, or you put colors in your presentation that signal that you're speaking to this group. It's not just a standard presentation. You reference materials, or you reference experts that they may know from the field. And finally, you show urgency, and you show genuine interest for what it is that this company and the audience is doing. So know your audience is the first one. The second tip that I have is have solid reasoning. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I teach students at the Kelley School of Business, MBA students, a few undergrads, executive students in our executive education. And I say to them that if you're going to try to change someone's mind and persuade them, you're not going to just do it on your good looks or your speaking skills. You have to have solid reasoning. You have to do some primary research, you have to do other research, but you have to explain how you know what you know. You have to be able to show the research that you've done. You have to persuade of why the company should follow this path, or this organization, why they should take this approach, why this makes sense. I'm reading a little bit of my notes here. Has another company tried it before? Are there any benchmark? What's the competition doing? But being able to do this and really using reasoning that has solid evidence, and not just one type of evidence. You want to use statistics and stories and quotes and numbers and kind of show that you understand. And that's how you can be more persuasive and boost your credibility. So the why it is that you are asking or describing something or pitching something is a really important part. The third one is one where I have a whole newsletter. In March of 2021, I think I talked about the very first newsletter for Stronger was on this: brag strategically. If you're not going to talk yourself up, nobody else is going to. So it's really important that you don't start a presentation by saying, in my 3 degrees and 10 certifications. You don't want to do that. No one wants to hear a speaker that starts with a brag along. What you want to do is strategically talk about, well, in the clients that we had in this industry, or let me tell you a story about when this happened. And then you put yourself in those contexts and people can say, wow, she has experience. You want to do that strategically. Sometimes if you are starting to speak, you may have someone else introduce you and it feels a little less awkward. So some tips that I mentioned in the newsletter is mention a company that you've worked for before that either the audience knows or is in the same industry, hopefully not a competitor. Tell a memorable story that brings a point to life but places you in that space. Quantify the work that you've done, number of hours or number of people that you worked with. It's kind of similar stuff that you have to do on a resume. For example, I could say that I publish a newsletter on LinkedIn on the platform, but if I say I publish a newsletter on LinkedIn that has close to 40,000 subscribers, we're close. We're at 39,300. That makes it a lot more quantifiable, but it also adds to my credibility. So think of what it would be to mention that for yourself. And again, I remind you, if you are not your brand ambassador, no one is going to do it for you. The fourth tip that I share is be prepared to pivot. And quite often, you build your credibility not when everything is going in stride. You build credibility with how you react or you respond to adversity. Let me tell you a story. I was doing a training on site for a company. It was in the middle of the winter, so we were inside quite a lot. We were not stepping in and out. And mid-sentence, the security people come in and say to me, we have to take cover. There's a bomb threat on campus. So we couldn't go outside. We had to stay inside and watch this play out. We could see from our windows what was happening. Now, mind you, I had spent hours designing this full day training from 8 to 5. And this happened at about 1 o'clock, right after lunch. So we saw literally the bomb squad. If you've ever seen a bomb suit, the guy was walking like a robot. He went and got this suspicious package and removed it. It ended up being that the CEO had traveled to a country that had sent back a present for him, and it wasn't well marked and it was super suspicious. But my training went out the window. By now it's 3:30 and everyone wanted to go home. Who wants to listen to me and go through the rest of the program? What I did, this is in 2000 and probably 2008, I'm thinking. I videotaped myself. This is before the age of Zoom and Teams and StreamYard. I videotaped myself. I sent them information on email. They had to send things back on their intranet. I was able to create and have a bounce back plan, and it worked really well. I built my credibility by the way I reacted and I pivoted, and I was able to continue to have this client for many years to come. So I ask you, when do you have to pivot? When do you get tough questions in Q&A? How do you prepare for that? When do you have a debacle with technology? Goodness knows we all have those. But it's those pivot moments that, and how you pivot, that create that credibility or boost your credibility. Finally, focus on the optics. You see me here, I'm in my home office, and the background and how decluttered or maybe how personable it is can boost my credibility, but it can also harm my credibility. If there is glare, or if the tech is not very good, or if you show up and you look like you've been hit by the bus and you're making a first impression. Obviously those optics, and it depends in different, I'm not going to get specific about what you should wear or how you should look, but you want to make sure you come across as having that credibility and being the person that has the competence to communicate whatever it is you're supposed to communicate. And I remember, I'll tell you one more story. I was a senior at Indiana University, where I also went to school, and I had 1 credit hour that I wanted to take left. And there was a course called The Coaching of Basketball. And at the time, the coach was Bobby Knight, who was a crazy successful coach from Wins, but he was also quite controversial. I was interested in his leadership philosophy. He was not coaching, he was not talking basketball, he was talking life philosophy. And then in the lab, everyone wanted to shoot baskets. Not me. I was a swimmer. I didn't know much about the sport. So one of the stories that he told was that he would interview his managers by walking them to their car after the interview. And you would see these young men, they were for the men's team, these young men would hide their keys, would say, "Oh, coach, it's far away. You don't want to walk all the way." Or, "I took the bus," and they would hide the keys. And Coach Knight said, "It's so important for me to see how well they keep their car. I could care less about what brand it is or what year it is. I'm not looking at that. I want to see if the car is clean on the outside and neat on the inside." That is critical. But you're probably all thinking, "Oh my gosh, if they see my car." But that reminded me so much that optics sometimes make impressions, build credibility, or can hinder or can harm credibility for anyone. So, what are the optics that relates to what you do in your everyday life? So, I go back to the beginning story, and it was unfortunate that that tag was open and it said tips for calming your nerves. And the speaker did a fine job towards the end. Everyone understood, but it was one of those little things that probably could be kept out. I don't think it harmed her career or it ended up being a detrimental thing at the end, but it's the little details that matter. So if you can build your brand or design a presentation that helps build your brand every time and be clear on your messages, messaging to be very sure you know who your audience is, you are bragging strategically, you are using good evidence and good information with what it is that you share, you're ready to pivot and you pay attention to the optics, all of that is going to help build your credibility. So remember, Thursday, the 30th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you go to my LinkedIn Learning, if I go to my LinkedIn platform, you're going to be able to see how to sign up for this. So if you grab this newsletter, if you Google Stronger Tatiana Kolovu, you can get it and then you can sign up. So I'll be there with Dave Human. Lots of ideas. We just got off of our tech call where we planned a lot of what we're going to do. We call it the choreography. And I think you're going to get a lot of good information. So thank you so much for watching. I can't see the other side of it, but I'd love if you would share some of your questions and your comments on this YouTube channel. And again, take care. Bye-bye.